Before this video begins, I want to mention you should never try to handle a firearm without proper supervision or without being properly trained in how to handle and use them beforehand. Today we're going to go over a few of the guns that were used in World War II and shoot them later. We're going to start with the Mosin Nagant M9130. It was originally created in 1891 but was revised in 1930, so that's the two numbers.
This rifle was made in Russia. It was designed by Sergei Moisin and Emil Nagant in the Russian arsenal. It fires a 7.62x5.4 rimmed cartridge. It was the main infantry rifle for the Russian army from 1930 and on. This rifle is used to this day all around the world. It was used in many battles, many wars all over Europe, and to this day it's still used. It's used by the Afghan army. There were soldiers in Vietnam, Vietnamese soldiers and Viet Cong soldiers that were found using these guns there. It has a detachable bayonet that the soldier would have to carry and install on the end. As you can see, it's a very large rifle. This rifle did very well during World War I. World War II, it created certain difficulties. Because of the size and the length of the gun and the weight of the rifle itself and the weight of the ammo, it was difficult for soldiers to go through cities and engage the enemy with it because it was basically designed for large battlefields. The range on it, as I said, was 500 yards or more. So going through a town where you're fighting 50 yards, 25 yards, or even shorter, created a lot of problems. So what the Russians did was they redesigned the rifle in 1938 with the smaller version. And then in 1944, the M44 was introduced. The M4, basically it's the same size as the M38. The only difference is the M44 has a built-in bayonet that was always on the rifle, so the soldier would not drop it, lose it, forget to bring it. It was always attached to the rifle, so it made it a lot easier when it came time to engage the enemy with the bayonet.
Break it out a little bit. Yeah. That's what Rich and Johnny I mentioned. Loosen her up.
Alright, so we also have a British Lee Enfield here, and this is one of the longest service rifles.
Yeah, this is the second longest service rifle in history, second to the Moisin Nagant. The rifle was designed in 1895 and it stayed in production until 1957. It has some very innovative features on it. The most significant being a cock-on-close bolt action, which the Moisin Nagant and every other bolt-action rifle, as you open the bolt, it also cocks the mechanism, which it's very difficult to open the bolt because you're cocking the mechanism at the same time to fire the rifle. The British Enfield is a cock-on-close, so to open it, you just, very easy with your finger, you can open it. As you move the bolt forward, that's when it cocks. So it's a very natural movement. Opening it, very simple. As you push it forward, That's when it cocks. Another innovative feature is the 10-round detachable box magazine. Most rifles at that time had had an internal magazine that held 5 rounds. This had 10 rounds, so it doubled the capacity, increasing the firepower. Also, having a detachable magazine made it, if you had several magazines, it made it quicker to load. Now, the British Army didn't really want their soldiers carrying extra magazines. Why, I have no idea. But they would put a chain from here to the magazine. So you don't lose the magazine and you don't really change them out. Some people would say, well, why would you lose a magazine? The mechanism here to detach the magazine is right above the trigger. So if you've ever seen those movies where, you know, guys take rifles and they go to fire it, the magazine falls out and everybody laughs, that came from this. That there was actually a real thing where soldiers in the middle of battle would get nervous and their finger would accidentally hit the magazine release and the magazine would fall out of the gun. So having the chain on there kept the magazine close where you could, you know, quickly detach it if that was to happen.
We also have a M1911 produced by Colt, still used by the Special Forces today. Would you like to tell us a little bit?
Yes. Yeah, the 1911 was designed by John Browning for a Colt. It came into service because during the Philippine-American War, the Americans were using the M1892, which was a .38 long Colt. Now the problem they were having was they would shoot the enemy with the .38 long Colt, and a lot of times they would get back up and they would continue fighting. So the military was looking for something that was more of a one-shot stopper, something that would take the enemy down and keep them down. So they adopted the M1911. It's a .45 caliber, which is a way bigger bullet than the .38, and it had more power behind it. So it was definitely a one-shot stopper. In 1926, it was revised and became the M1911A1, which is what we have here. This particular model is made in the Springfield Armory. They contracted out to a couple of different armories in order to be able to produce enough weapons for the military. The Mark I trench knife was very expensive to produce, and it had a long, flimsy blade that tended to break. So the military was looking for something sturdier, stronger, easier to produce, didn't cost as much to produce, and was more utilitarian. So a company in New York called Union Cutlery came up with this design. It was later known as the K-bar knife. It's still being used today, despite of coming into service in 1942.